So, good morning, my dear students and friends. Welcome back to my next lecture, that is the nature, formation, and participation in treaties. We'll be discussing about the treaties, how it is formed, how we can form, how we can sign, and how we can implement the treaties. So, I'm Professor Urus Ilyas, working in Department of Wildlife Sciences, Aligarh Muslim University, and teaching the wildlife sciences to postgraduate student also involved in the research. We are teaching the environmental studies to undergraduate students. So, welcome back in nature, formation and participation in treaties. So, treaties, the treaty on treaties. So, there was a convention, convention on the treaties, that is called the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, VCLT. Known as the Treaty on Treaties, the VCLT establishes comprehensive operational guideline rules and procedures for how treaties are drafted, defined, amended, and interpreted. If you are going to seek collaboration, so what would be the guidelines? How we can do? How we can initiate any problem? How we can write the treaty, what would be the framework for that. To form the treaty, there was a convention on the treaty to form the treaties. So that convention is called as the Treaty on Treaties. What would be the framework? So this is an international treaty in a written agreement between countries subject to international law that stipulates their consent to the creation, alteration, or termination of their rights and obligations as stipulated in the treaty. So let's discuss about the treaties. In 1969, Vienna Convention took place and it defines a treaty as an international agreement concluded between states in written form and governed by international law, whether embodies in a single instruments or in two or more related instruments, and whatever its practical designation. So this is an international agreement concluded between states. States is actually about the countries. The agreement between the countries in a written form, and the government governed by international law. So treaty is always is a written form and governed by the international law is treaty. So treaty aim to manage relation between states, resolve disputes and promote cooperation on global issues. They help create a stable and predictable international environment. Treaty is legally binding agreement between entities such as countries or international organization. Treaty is actually the agreement between two or more than two countries, between the region. So agreement could be at the regional level, at the national level, at the international level. So that is the treaty. So treaty is a legal binding agreement between entities such as countries or international organization. It can cover various matters including trade, defense, human rights, and environmental protection. So treaty is actually the agreement between the countries or international organization. It can cover various matters including trade, defense, human rights, and environmental protection. So this picture itself explains treaties are the principal source of international rights and obligation. Every state is a party to hundreds of treaties, bilateral and multilateral. And treaties regulate practically in every aspect of state behavior in times of peace and in time. So if you have any issue and you want to make it global, you want a global cooperation, we hold a convention, and that convention is actually the treaty, the agreement between the countries, the agreement between the organization, the agreement between the regions is the treaty, the agreement, and that treaty actually address the global issues and seeks global cooperation. That is the treaty. So there are three types of treaties: the bilateral treaty, multilateral treaty, and regional treaty. Three types of, definitely treaty agreement for any kind of agreement, at least two parties are required. This could be the regional parties, this could be the many countries, many states, this could be the bilateral, only two countries, two parties. So there are three kind of treaties: the bilateral treaty, multilateral treaty, and the regional treaty. And types of treaties: bilateral treaty is the agreement between two parties, typically two countries. For example, US Canada Free Trade Agreement in 1988. There was a free trade agreement in 1988, an agreement aimed at reducing trade barrier between the two countries, the US and the Canada. Like this, we have many treaties between the countries, within the countries, between many countries. And multilateral treaties is agreement involve three or more parties. More than two countries means three or more parties, which may include multiple state or international organization. For example, Convention on Biological Diversity. We just discussed Convention on Biological Diversity in our last lecture, and we discussed how different nations wanted one solution at the global platform, and that is why CBD took place. Convention on the Biological Diversity took place to conserve, protect the biodiversity for sustainable utilization and equitable and fair sharing of the resources arising from the genetic material. So CBD and CITES are the multilateral treaty, because three and more than three countries are involved, signed the treaties. Many countries wanted this kind of. So this kind of treaty is called as the multilateral treaty. So bilateral treaty means agreement between two countries, for example, the US Canada Free Trade Agreement. And multilateral treaties is Convention on the Biological Diversity. There are regional treaties also, agreement involving countries within a specific geographical region aiming to address regional issue and promote regional cooperation. For example, European Union Treaty. Various treaties forming the basis of European Union, such as Treaty of Rome 1957 and the Maastricht Treaty in 1992. So there are three kind of treaties: bilateral treaty, multilateral treaty, and the regional treaty. There are different nature of the treaties. Treaties has got the different nature. They have legal instrument, written and public, and binding effect. So legal instrument, there are different nature of the treaties. Are the first nature is the legal instrument. That is, treaties are formal agreement that establish legal rights and obligation between parties. They are recognized under international law and are intended to be legal binding. Written and public, treaties are typically documented in writing and made available to the public. The agreement, the treaty has to be written. So it is documented in writing and made available to the public. This transparency ensures that all parties and the international communities are aware of the commitment made under this treaty. Binding effect: once a treaty is ratified, it creates legal obligation for the parties involved. These obligations must be fulfilled in good faith as per the principle of pacta sunt servanda. Agreement must be kept. If you promise something, you have to fulfill your promise. You have to keep your promise. This promise could be the regional, this promise could be the between two countries, and this promise could be between the many countries. If you promise something, if you agreed upon something, you have to keep your promise. So how the treaties are formed? There are a long process of the formation of the treaty. It is not the one day job. It takes years and years for the formation of the treaty. First thing is For any treaty, the first thing is the negotiation. Treaties are typically negotiated during international conferences or meetings where representatives from various countries discuss and draft the term of the agreement. Negotiation often involve scientific assessment, stakeholder consultations, and consideration of existing laws and agreements. So this is called negotiation. And after the negotiation, if many countries, two or more than two countries are agreed upon, they pen down do's and don'ts and they negotiate. After the negotiation, the second step is the drafting. We have to pen down all the negotiations. Once an agreement in principle is reached, the treaty is drafted. This document outlines the detailed term, obligation, and right of the parties. Legal experts often assist in drafting to ensure clarity and precision. Definitely, if you are drafting something, even in our, if we are dealing with some legal issues, so the first thing is that the drafting. So if you are drafting something, you have to take the legal advices. Same is with the international agreements. The drafting. Okay, we are drafting, but we have to take care of the clarity and the precision. In that case, we take the help of the legal people. So first thing is the negotiation, second is the drafting, and third is the signature. After drafting, the treaty is signed by the authorized representative of the parties. The people who are involved, the people of the different countries who are involved in the negotiation and the drafting has to sign. They have to sign the treaty to make it legal. So after drafting, the treaty is signed by authorized representative of the parties. Signing indicates the parties' intention to be bound by the treaty but does not make it legally binding. It is just it is a document which is ready and it is ready in presence of these people. So they sign, that is called signature. Signing indicates the party's intention to be bound by the treaty but does not yet make it legally binding. So we negotiated, drafted, and then signed. After the signature is the ratification. What is ratification? To become legal binding, a treaty must be ratified by the participating countries. The process involves each country's domestic legal system, where the treaty is reviewed and formally accepted, often by a legislative body or executive authority. So that is the ratification. To become legally binding, a treaty must be ratified by the participating countries. Right after the ratification is the implementation. Once ratified, two or more than two countries, if ratified, country must implement the treaty's provisions into their national law and policy. Like, for example, when the CBD was formed, Convention on the Biological Diversity was formed. It was the global convention. So, on the basis of the CBD, on the basis of the global convention, every nation had to develop their national biodiversity strategies and action plan. So, if there is a global treaty, so global treaty should come at meet the requirement of the national law and the policies. This may require legislative changes, the establishment of new regulatory bodies, or the allocation of the resources. Collaboration after the implementation, there are collaboration. Many treaties encourage collaboration among countries, organizations, and communities. This can involve joint research, information sharing, and coordinating conservation action. So this was the formation of treaties, negotiation, drafting, signature, ratification, implementation, and collaboration. How we can participate in a treaty? We were not there at the time of the signature. So to become the part of the treaty, we have to follow some protocol. So participation in treaties is through the membership. Countries that are party to a treaty are known as parties or contracting parties. Membership can vary widely, from a few countries to a large number of nations globally. Are the membership. You can always go for the membership of the treaty, and obtaining the membership means you are the party of the treaties. You are the party of the convention. Then commitments. After the membership is the commitment. Participating countries commit to following the treaties guideline. Suppose if we are the part of the CBT, we have signed the CBT, we have to follow all the rules and regulation, and accordingly we have to make the changes in our national laws. So this is called commitment. So participating countries commit to following the treaties guideline, which can include conservation measures, habitat protection, and reporting on progress. They often need to coordinate with other parties to achieve common goals. The third is the monitoring and compliances. Monitoring and compliances. Treaties typically includes mechanism for monitoring compliances, such as reporting, requirements or inspections. Non-compliance may result in diplomatic pressure, sanction, or other measures to encourage adherence. If you are signing any treaty, if any nation is signing any treaty, they have to compliance with the rules and regulation of the treaty. They have to make changes in their national law. They have to implement the treaty at the national level. So membership, commitment, monitoring, and states. Sovereign states are the primary participants in treaties. They negotiate, sign, and ratify treaties and are bound by their provisions when ratified. International organizations such as United Nations or the European Union can also be parties to treaties. They may negotiate and enter into agreements that pertain to their functions and areas of competence. So there are international organizations. They can be the party of any convention like United Nations or the European Union. Non-governmental actors. While non-governmental organizations are and other non-state actors may influence treaty negotiation, they do not typically become parties to treaties. However, their input can be significant in shaping the content of agreements. So there are non-governmental actors also, those who help, they give their input, significant input in shaping the content of the agreements. Overseas status. Some entities including states or organization may participate as observer. Observer do not have the same rights and full party, but can provide input and stay informed about the treaty's progress. Then come to the accession and succession. States that are not original party to a treaty can join later through accession. Ramsar Convention took place, or CBD took place in 1992, but if a country wants to be party of the CBD in 2024, can sign the treaty, and that is called accession. And so accession, states that were not original party to a treaty can join later through accession. Additionally, new states formed from the breakup of existing state or through other means may success to treaty provisional binding on their predecessors. So Czechoslovakia was the one country. It was divided into Czech Republic and Slovakia. Czechoslovakia was the sign the convention. Suppose Czechoslovakia signed some convention. Now it is in different, it has been divided into two countries. So following, or they can, the new state formed from the breakup of existing states of through other means may succeed to treaties provisionally binding on the predecessors. Okay, that is the example of the Czechoslovakia. Apart from the accession and successions, the countries have reservation also. They are ready to follow the rules and regulation agreements of the treaty, except few. That is called reservation and the declaration. Like India says, okay, I am ready to follow all your whatever is written, but please give me some excuses, and that is the reservation and declaration. You have to reserve your rights and declare your rights. Reservation and declaration, a state may attach reservations or declaration to their ratification. Reservation modify or exclude certain treaty provisions, while declaration clarify how the state interprets or applies the treaty. So that is the reservation. There are different examples of the treaties: Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, that is CITES, we have discussed, also known as Washington Convention, is a multilateral treaty to protect endangered plants and animals from the threat of international trade. It was drafted as a result of a resolution adopted in 1963 at a meeting of members of the International Union for Conservation of Nature. The convention was opened for signature in 1973 and CITES entered into force on 1st July 1975. Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. This is again one convention. This convention means there are more than countries, 3 countries involved in this convention, and this is the multilateral treaty. CITES is also a multilateral treaty. It is also known as the Bonn Convention, in an international agreement that aims to conserve migratory species through their ranges. Ramsar Convention on wetlands, many or most of the countries have got their wetlands and they wanted the global collaboration, cooperation, so that they conserve, protect the wetlands, and more than 3 countries signed the convention, and that is why it is a multilateral treaty. Focusing on the conservation and sustainable use of wetland globally, the Ramsar Convention on wetland of international importance, especially as waterfowl habitat, is an international treaty for the conservation and sustainable use of Ramsar sites, that is the wetlands. It is also known as the Convention on Wetlands. It is named after the city of the Ramsar in Iran, where the convention was signed in 1971. CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity, is again a global agreement to cover all aspects of biological diversity. So the aim to perspective biodiversity, promote sustainable use and ensure fair sharing of benefits from the genetic resources. So these are the form of treaties. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this lecture and soon we'll be meeting again. Thank you.